Sea Stars, Emmy here, and welcome to a different kind of video. Now, since I put an update out, I've decided I am going to read Reddit posts from paranormal encounters, paranormal, and creepy encounters. Today is going to be creepy encounters. Sometimes people can be absolutely amazing, but then there's times when others are just well and truly creepy. And this user ended up bumping into a creepy person in a hallway. Now, this post was posted 2 months ago, and it goes like this. About 3 weeks ago, I came home from work, took the elevator to my floor, and turned the corner where my hallway splits. It's an old building with a sort of awkward footprint. The hallway is split down the middle by a wall, creating a left hallway and a parallel right hallway, each about 50 feet long. The left side has 4 steps that drop down a half floor, followed by a straight hall, and an apartment at the end. Brackets, it's a dead end. My apartment is down the right side hallway, also at a dead end. Sufficiently confused yet? Anyway, I round the corner from the elevator and glance down the left hallway to see a guy fiddling with the door handle like he's locked out. I immediately felt like it was a threat. I've never had a physical reaction like that, but it made my skin crawl. So I picked up the pace and kept speed walking down my hall. As I was just about to be out of sight, I saw the guy's head whip round to see me from the end of the other hall. I picked up the pace and reached the end of the hall, and before my hand was on the doorknob, I heard him sprinting up behind me. He was running at me so fast that he made it 50 feet down the left hall, up the small flight of stairs, around the corner, and down my hall in the same time it took me to go 50 feet. Super aggressive and scary. I realized my keys were in the side pocket of my bag and I couldn't unlock the door. So I froze outside my door and glanced back to see him reach toward me. Thankfully, my boyfriend flung the door open right at that moment, and the creep puts his hands up, turned and bolted down the hall and out the door. The experience was so unnerving. I emailed my building manager and she never got back to me. We can't keep cameras in the halls, but I'm going to hide one out there anyway. But I don't know if I should or say anything else about the guy. I have a neighbor I've been meaning to warn about it, but she's never home when I am. Should I leave her a note? I'm not sure if this was just a one-time thing, and it isn't the first creepy guy I've encountered in my life. But it freaks me out living down a dead-end hallway where I was literally cornered, and knowing my neighbor is vulnerable too really bothers me. Should I leave a note at the door the guy was messing with before coming after me? Part of me worries that it was his apartment, and leaving a note will mean leaving him a note about how creepy and predatory I thought he was. Which wouldn't be ideal, but assuming he was trying to target another person at the end of the hall when I interrupted him, they would want to know if someone tried getting in, right? What if they keep their door unlocked often and he were to come back and try the handle again? There are no emergency exits in our apartments, just one way in and one way out, so they'd be trapped. Holy moly. That to be honest, the sounds of that makes me think that they don't live there, especially if he chased after you, because then that would mean he couldn't get his intended target, so he went for you instead, which is just as bad. But he could also live there, and that could be another issue. It's really hard to tell. Okay, so imagine this. You're in high school and you are constantly around your friends. You love your friends so much and you hang out with them outside of school. This is about a friend's neighbor being creepy. The user posted this 9 months ago. I had a friend in high school who was unique to me. I'd been in a class with all the same students from grade school until getting to high school, and everyone in that class was incredibly serious and competitive about grades and schoolwork. We were way higher performing than even the gifted class. I even talked to some of the gifted students and they said their teacher was always like, why can't you be more like the French class? When I started hanging out with her and she didn't give a damn about school and had an actual personality, it was refreshing. She'd tell me about ways to avoid her parents knowing report cards had come out and how she plans for tricking them and delaying the eventual truth that she wasn't doing well in school, and nobody I knew ever did that sort of thing. I was over at her house all the time and it didn't take long to notice her neighbour. He was friendly. The first couple of times we saw him, I'd wave back at him or say hello if he said it first. She told me not to talk to him or pay attention to him, and I didn't realise how serious she was. Creepy people weren't new to me, and I already understood the concept, but I didn't realise the extent of intrusion a neighbour could have. To me, it wasn't like she was ever over at his house, or that he ever came over to hers, so I didn't see the harm. But she was right. This guy was really creepy. It was just that he knew things about her and wasn't afraid to mention these things. Her schedule, where she'd been over the weekend, stuff like that. Hey, you were late to class this morning. Did you have fun camping this weekend? Also, he was focused on her. I probably ended up spending just as much time at her house as she did, and he couldn't have cared less. All he ever did that I saw was wave and say hello and try to start a conversation with her from his driveway. It's like it was okay if he was on his property. Like, if it was from his driveway, it was all innocent and fine. That, actually, to me, made it infinitely creepier. Like, his whole house was the menace and not just him as a person. So, the house was a looming threat my friend had to pass every day, going to and from wherever she was going, even when he wasn't outside. As far as I know, nothing ever happened with that guy. But the image of him in his driveway or on his porch is still there in my mind. Okay, so that is kind of creepy. Having a neighbor basically watching everything that you do is ugh. Especially if they know the exact things you've done. Like, you've gone camping on the weekend and stuff like that. No, don't like it. It's gross. No, nuh-uh. Imagine you're 18 and you were basically traveling on your own. Then some creepy guy seems to follow you off of that train. This story was posted 7 days ago. So, this story happened to me about 12 or 13 years ago. So, I was around 14, 15 at the time. For some context, back then I lived in Liguria, a coastal region in the northwest of Italy. Every Monday after school, I would go to a neighbouring town for my singing lessons and usually get the train back to the closest village to my home, from which I would then take a bus. One Monday, as the train was reaching my destination, I spotted a man looking at me. The only thing I remember about him is that he was very tall. I remember squirming in my seat a little bit, trying to stretch my shorts as far down my thighs and my tank top as far down my belly as I could to try and cover as much skin as possible. I even stood up and moved to another carriage. I finally did descend the train, and to my absolute horror, the station was empty and the creepy dude was the only other passenger that exited the train alongside me. You see, C's station normally has people dotted around it, and the street outside is regularly the same thing. However, on that day, no one was around. I remember speeding down the stairs on my way to the bus stop, hoping that he just exited the train because he lived in C2. No luck though. We were the only two people in the street, and he was still following me, staring intently at me. In the meantime, fight or flight kicked in. My friend's mother had a hair salon nearby, so I booked it towards it, and as I approached, I started frantically waving my hands about trying to get her attention. Even though working hours were over, I was lucky enough that she was still inside cleaning up and let me in. This man proceeded to wait outside the salon for almost 45 minutes, pacing and looking inside. I am lucky enough that my dad would come to pick me up anytime, no questions asked. But my mind was riddled with what ifs for years. What if my dad was working that day? What if the hairdressers was already shut? What if I couldn't have ran as fast? That is just ugh. It really gives a creepy vibe, because what happens if those what ifs had actually happened? That man could have done anything, and honestly, I'm glad that these people got away from these creepy strangers, because holy crap, I would be bricking it. Sometimes customers can be amazing. They can be helpful to you, and they can be really appreciative of what you do for them. But then there's times when they are just absolutely creepy. This was posted a month ago. I work behind a bar that throws events, so often deal with drunk people and have had a few creepy encounters with men. However, this one stands out to me. I laugh about it now, and did on the day, to be honest, but it terrified me and left me petrified. I was working a wedding and a man came up to the bar. He started talking to me about work while my colleague served him. He was really nice and we had a good laugh. He asked if I was the manager, which isn't massively relevant, just felt like mentioning it. Then he asked for my name. I gave it to him, as I have a name badge, and at this point wasn't uncomfortable or in any danger. I tell him my name, then he reaches his hand over the bar and says, "Look at this." As we were talking about work, I think, oh, he's gonna show me a scar he got from the job or whatever. He then says, "Hold it." Still confused, but still not uncomfortable or finding it weird yet. I do. I was confused at what he meant, so I went to hold his hand like it was an item. Then he made it clear he wanted me to shake his hand. Not sure how that happened, just did. But he doesn't shake my hand, he holds it. He's not holding tight, he's very gentle, but he just holds it. He then says, "Feels right, doesn't it?" At this point, it's weird. Lines have now been crossed. He's now being creepy. I'm now uncomfortable. I uncomfortably laugh and agree. He says something I don't quite hear over the music, but I caught the end of it. Or I could just lean across the bar and kiss you right now. I, again, don't really say anything because what the fuck. He quickly goes, "Oh, but wait, there's cameras." I say, "Yes, there is right there staring right at us," knowing full well they probably don't work, but this may keep me safe. My colleagues are right beside me this whole time, but they don't really know what's happening as they can't hear him. He then tells me to meet him outside. I agree, trying to keep myself safe and get the situation over with. He's still got a hold of my hand, may I add. He says, "You probably won't though, will you?" I deny and say I definitely will meet him. Again, unsure of what to say, unsure of what he may do if I say no. Finally he leaves, after a bit more of him saying to meet him outside, and I quickly turn to my co-workers and loosely explain. I see him appear at the window that says right behind the bar from outside. I tell my co-workers I'm uncomfortable and I'm going to go upstairs for 5 minutes. On my way up, one of the managers passes me. I run to her and tell her what happened. She's like, what the fuck? And says she'll be down here for the rest of the night anyways. He stayed at the window all night. The night was almost over, like 30 minutes left, I don't know. But still, he kept looking over and I was still a bit shaken up and like, what the fuck just happened? The end of the night approached and I start to go around the tables doing my shutdown jobs with one of my other colleagues. At one point, we were just stood there, not sure if we were folding tablecloths or what. Honestly, it's a blur. Suddenly I feel someone's hands on my arms and I hear a voice whisper in my ear, "You left me hanging." Before I even processed any of that, I was screaming. I only realized what was happening when my brain heard my scream and my body reacted. I ran to my manager who was just ahead of me. I refused to look back, but I hear him say something like, "Bloody hell, that's one hell of a scream." My manager didn't hear the scream, and seemingly no one else but him and my co-worker did either. My manager seemed unfazed by this new situation, and I started to feel silly for screaming and running away, but that was just how my body reacted. I had no control, nor did I know it was happening until it did. Anyways, he didn't approach me again and shortly left, but I felt so scared and uncomfortable all night. I drove home with his voice in my head, afraid he was going to pop up from the back seat, even though I checked them before I start to drive. I think I would have screamed too. That guy is an absolute creep. Like, telling you to meet him outside, saying he's going to lean over the counter and kiss you. It's honestly not your fault that you have to deal with creeps with bartending. Bartending leads to a lot of creeps, unfortunately. But honestly, I would have screamed as well and ran off. Nah, not risking it. My body would have told me to fucking leg it. Alright, Sea Stars, thank you so much for watching the first Creepy Encounters video on this channel. And I hope you enjoyed. If you did, be sure to leave a like, comment, subscribe, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!